Welcome to the Album Anniversary Podcast. Today's show is about the things we have grown to love by All the Day Holiday. It was released August 4th, 2009, celebrating a 15-year anniversary. Hi, I'm your host, Caleb, or Caleb the Spy, on Twitter and Instagram, and every day on those social media sites I post about what I call album anniversaries. And look, it's just the anniversary of the album's release date. If I don't know that release date, I might just throw a date on my calendar to celebrate that album. And that's really how this started. A couple years ago, I created a calendar to celebrate the release date of some of my favorite albums. But in the last year or so, the list of albums has grown significantly, and I now have over 2,000 albums tracked on my calendar. On this show, I often focus on alternative rock, punk, and my strange obsession with ska. In the 90s, I was super into the Christian music scene, so that comes up often on the show, and I've always had a fascination with historically important albums or musical events. Today, I'm joined by the king of CCM Twitter, Eric, to answer 5 simple questions about the things we've grown to love by All the Day Holiday. Eric, I can't believe you're on my show. I'm so excited you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here. It's been an honor to get to know you over the last year plus. So it's good to finally see you face to face and have a chat.
Yeah, we've officially rolled over a year because it was probably March during the tournament of last year. So we've crossed the year mark, and you haven't blocked me yet. I'm gonna call that a victory.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I try and keep it clean and avoid anything crazy controversial, like the take I got today from Chris Unthank on Rich Mullins' album. Hot take on nothing like that from me.
Oh, I missed that actually. I'm gonna have to go back and find it.
It's the Jesus record came out today.
Yeah.
That's a little insight to when we're recording, and he was
All
like,
right.
I don't know, this record never did anything for me. And my Twitter's been
Oh
blowing up
wow,
all day because people are like love that album. So
that's really surprising. Actually, I
yeah,
I love that album
yeah,
myself.
everyone does except for him apparently.
Yeah, that's a hot take right there.
That was my exact response. Hot take. He's like, yes, it is. So usually when I have people on, I kind of ask them for like a little bit of background about themselves, but I've heard you on a couple podcasts share that. I think you've done it on Church Jams Now. So you have an episode with them where you talk about For Him, and then there was, I think, even one other one. I think on Black Sheep you got to share a little of your background. So I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna tell people to go check out those shows if they want to hear more about your background. And I kind of instead want to talk to you about the CC or CD revival, because that's something that you post about, and I think it's really interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about it, and then not only why it's maybe cool, but why it might also actually be important? Because I thought you might have some insights. So this is a chance to evangelize CD revival.
When I first started getting into music, cassettes were, I guess, kind of still a big thing. But not long after that, CDs became the big thing. When I was 13, I
Hmm.
got my first Discman and, a book of CDs, fill up a book of 24 to 48 to 64 to 128 and on
Yeah.
and on and on. And I just developed a real love for the format. And I love vinyl, and I'm glad
Hmm.
that people are buying vinyl as well. But I want people to realize that CDs are also a valuable format in that they're easier to house a bunch
Hmm.
of them. I think, and should the internet ever just implode and streaming go away, you have your CDs there, so you won't be without your favorites. And right now, if you go to a used music store, you can get such good deals on great music. And for me, I'd rather buy $31 CDs that
Yeah.
I know at least have a couple songs on there I like. Maybe I want to get to know the whole thing rather than
Yeah.
spend that $30 on one record. Although I buy my very favorites on vinyl. I do have
For
about
sure.
300 records, but I just think people are kind of missing out on the value of CDs and the honor of actually owning music. I feel like a lot of people are kind of losing that
Yeah.
just to streaming and things like that.
Yeah. I think you nailed it because even some places CD has outpaced the digital price. Like you can buy an album for like still $10 digitally, but if you can find it on CD, even if it's not like the bargain bin, it's maybe $6 or maybe it's $8, but you get to own that physical copy. There
Yeah.
is something about that. And I talked to my niece who's in college. She just turned 21. And I asked her, I was talking music with her, and she was the same thing. She's like, well, I can't afford vinyl because I'm in college and I don't have any place for it. Like, she's like, where am I going to keep it in my little dorm room? So like that's what she used. She's like mostly listens to CDs. And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. So I think
Yeah.
even that kind of age bracket has gone back to it. And I think that's pretty cool to just to kind of see people going back to it.
Yeah, I've read some articles about, college
Yeah.
students, hitting up their local music stores that have, CDs,
Yeah.
used CDs, and kind of starting to build their own collection there. So that's encouraging to see younger kids getting in on that, because I mean vinyl, yes, that's tough for a college kid to be able to own their
Yeah.
favorites, all of them on vinyl.
Yep.
Another thing that I love about CDs is I know there's a debate of do they sound better or not. I think for 2000s music and beyond, I think
Hmm.
CDs sound better personally.
Huh.
But I also do know that every time you play a record, it it wears those grooves a little bit. So
Yeah.
each time you play the record, it's not going to sound quite as good as the first time you played it, and that doesn't happen with CDs.
Yeah.
So you can, as long as don't throw your CD player around with a disc in it, you can get the same sound quality from your CD over many many plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I there's something nostalgic about it for me. I think I've shared this with people. I lived in China for 2 years, and right after college, I went over to China. I was with a Christian organization, and I took my two books of like they've got to be 100 plus CDs. They're the big square cases, and that was possible. I didn't have digital wasn't a thing. I'm old enough where digital wasn't an option. It was 2001. So that was the only way for me to do it was to grab these two huge books of 100 plus CDs and I threw them in it was like I had to do I bring these clothes or do I bring these CDs? I had to like manage my luggage, but I was able to do it. I brought 200 CDs over to China to listen to that. This just no the only way I could do it at the time, and so I'm nostalgic for the format as well. So yeah.
I think people are also too sure of the streaming, the music streaming companies to stay the way they are, where everything is on each
Yeah.
streaming service, because that's obviously not the way it is with, TV and movies.
Yeah.
Each service has their own things. And I am not going to pay for 10 different music streaming services if it fractures like that.
Yeah.
I will gladly just import my CDs to my computer, which I mostly do anyways.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I switched to YouTube Music. I mean, it is absolutely because it's now granted they could take that away and I'd be hosed, but it was the only way for me to do it in a reasonable manner. So I took a whole bunch of CDs and threw them on there, and so it's technically my music, and they could all of a sudden say, "No, you can't do that anymore," and I'd be in some big trouble because I got a lot of albums on there, but it is the reason. So anyway, yeah,
right.
that's what I do as well. Is I want to keep it on one because I think you're right. I mean, we've seen it with Netflix, and everybody now has their own streaming service. There's no reason to think that at some point Warner Brothers won't say, "Hey, you know what?
Right.
Let's do our own thing."
And they tried that a little bit with Title,
Mm,
but I could still see something like that happening
yeah.
again.
Yep. I totally agree.
I appreciate you asking me about the CD revival, because
Yeah.
it's something I'm very passionate about, even if I didn't maybe articulate things as well as I want. I have a million thoughts about it, so it's kind of hard to just streamline it and get everything out as I intend.
We'll just have to have you back on just to talk about that. Maybe we could get a couple people together. That could be a
Yeah,
whole.
definitely.
That sounds maybe something better for your show. Yeah, you could do a whole show on that. It's not
Yeah,
people going through their formats. So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, with that out of the way, let's jump in and we'll talk about. I'm going to mess up the title because I've been trying to say it right and I keep on messing it up. The Things We've Grown to Love by All the Day Holiday. I mess up the name of their band every time. I just want to say All Day Holiday. So All the Day Holiday.
It's like a trampoline. We'll fly, we'll fall, and we'll dream that we'll make it to the stars in the sky above. It's what love is like. Oh, it's what it's like. And we grow so fast, we make everything last, 'cause we rely on the makers to mold us into
The Things We've Grown to Love by All the Day Holiday. I'm going to mess it up every time. Released August 4th, 2009, a 15-year anniversary. So here's some facts. I don't know if any of them are fun. For a while in my scripts, I was putting fun facts, and I was like, these aren't fun. They're just facts. Just why do you got to call them fun? So this was their debut and their only album. They had released an EP 2 years earlier, but I think this is the only album you would get from this group. And it was produced by Matt, and I'm really good at last names. Malpass is what I want to say. And I couldn't find a bunch about him, but I think I found his Instagram page, maybe. And if I did, it looks like he has worked with a ton of people. And here, I'm just going to list some of them. Blink-182, MGK, Lil Nas X, Trippie Redd, The Chainsmokers, Suicide Boys, DGD. I don't know who any of these people are. Nothing, Nowhere, and 311. There's also some other ones I skipped because I realized I wouldn't know how to pronounce them. So if that's him, he has worked with a lot of different people and a lot of, Blink-182 is the big one there for my taste, but Lil Nas X is huge. I mean, so some really big artists if I found the right person.
I haven't really kept up with him a whole lot since then. When I first fell in love with this album, I looked into his stuff that he'd done, and I know he's worked on like some Copeland albums and things like that. But it sounds like he's gotten pretty big, though, if that's the people he's working with now.
And if that's the right person. It's entirely possible that it's not him and it's just another guy named Matt Malpass. But I
mean, what are the odds of that?
yeah, it's a pretty unique last name. Yeah. So yeah. The album was included on Absolute Punk's list of their top 30 albums of 2009. So that's Absolute Punk is a solid enough website. They get some solid reviews. So 2009, that's a pretty big get for them. And then I'll say this honestly, Wikipedia had those, and that was about all I could find. So I couldn't even find like old interviews of the band. So Eric, is there other like facts about this that you know of that would be helpful for people? Because I couldn't find a whole lot else.
Yeah, my OCD tendencies when I really get into an album, I obsess about it. So when this came out in 2009, I first discovered them opening for May, basically on the Kentucky-Ohio border, and All the Day Holiday are from Cincinnati. So
okay,
I'm guessing they were not like on that tour. They were a local opener, and I was very impressed with them. They're from Cincinnati. They also, after this full length, released like a remix EP.
Okay,
I think it was 6 to 8 songs maybe that were, most of them were just like slowed way down and things. So they released that on Broken Circles Records, who were early in the vinyl game, releasing Solid State albums onto vinyl before Solid State started doing it themselves. I know some things about what the members are doing now, but I don't know if you want to cover that now or later.
No, let's do that now. Yeah, where's everybody, or at least if you know some of them, where are they at now?
Okay, I don't know where they're all at. I'm friends with 2 of them on Facebook.
Okay.
The bassist David Roller still plays music in a band called Coast Off.
Okay.
I think it's mainly a solo project of his, with that he has some friends record on with him. They play shows and everything. They're still very active in the music scene. The singer Daniel Simmons, I know that when not long after they broke up, he moved to Minneapolis. And from what I see on Facebook, he's has a family and things now.
Okay.
The drummer, I feel like he was involved in computer you know, something involving, computers or design or something
Sure.
like that. I don't know that I've seen anything about the guitarist in a long time.
Okay. So primarily the bassist is really the only one who's kept up with the music stuff, and the rest of them kind of moved on
Yeah,
to civilian life.
to my knowledge, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Lived in Minneapolis. I live closer than I thought to one
Yeah.
of them. That's pretty funny. I wonder if we probably have not run in the same circles, but he's probably way too cool to hang out with somebody like me. So
He did also, I almost forgot, have a solo project as well. The singer did, called Brother Daniel.
okay,
It was a little more singer songwritery, a little bit folkier than Holiday Holiday, but
okay.
still had his vocal style and stuff. It was really good stuff.
That one sounds familiar, but I could just be thinking about something else. But oh, that's cool to kind of hear where they've headed off to. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So when I originally set this up, I didn't realize that this was a potentially, I'll say potentially Christian related band. But now that originally I was like, oh, am I bringing Eric on, the king of CCM Twitter, to talk about an album that isn't a Christian band? But here's the evidence I see, and I know some people hate the idea of labeling it Christian or not Christian. I'm just doing it because of like just the label for conversation. It's not like I know a lot of people just have this very negative view. I don't want to be labeled that. I'm just not that worried about it. It is what it is, and
Yeah.
I hopefully people don't get offended by it that they were labeled a Christian band. But the evidence I'm seeing is I see a 2010 Cornerstone performance. The review in Punk News calls them modest Christianity, or makes some reference to modest Christianity, which I have no idea what that actually means. And then at some point, somebody was asking for like Christian emo bands on Reddit, and I saw somebody respond with them that they are a Christian emo band. So is that how you would classify them? That this was kind of a Christian, or at least Christian adjacent a band?
Yeah, they were definitely in that realm. Whether they would classify themselves
Sure.
as that or not, I don't know. But like they opened for May. They AJ Simmons, who I have on my podcast pretty often, I think he saw them open for Love Drug, who was another
Hmm.
band that was in that Christian alternative scene. The lyrics are pretty in line with Christianity,
Yep.
and the singer actually, when he moved to Minneapolis, I believe was getting involved in ministry or going to seminary or something like that. So the lyricist is or was definitely at that time a practicing Christian. I
Okay.
don't know much about the other members.
Okay. So that's good. I did bring you on to talk about at least something semi-Christian. So I didn't totally fail that assignment. Good job, me. Well, that's good. I'm glad we got that cleared up. And I was on the fence until I saw the like Cornerstone performance, and I was like, oh, okay. At the very least, in that circle, and I was like, okay, so I did nail the that I wasn't crazy to call them a Christian band, modest
Yeah.
Christian at the very
If you played Cornerstone, whether you want to be lumped in or not, you're going to be.
it's a thing. Like I know people revolt at it, and I'm like, when bands who are sounding to like, and I get it, Tooth and Nail. That's a whole other conversation. What Tooth and Nail was doing, but like if you were on BEC, I'm sorry, like you got to be semi okay with the label if you were on BEC. Tooth and Nail, I can let's have a little conversation. You were on BEC, like you were clearly like a Christian band.
Yeah.
Like there's just no way around it. The Supertones, for goodness
Yeah.
sakes, were on BEC.
Right.
You're a Christian band, whether you
Right.
like the label or not. So
Absolutely.
Locked inside my fear, this occupied escape is just describing I am tired. I know that this is something real. I'm sleeping, but my mind is dreaming still. The things I see are something I can't feel. When I wake, it all is like a seal.
So first question, you kind of already touched on this a little bit, but how did you discover this album in particular?
So yeah, like I mentioned, I saw them open for May, and I guess that would have been either 2008 or early 2009.
Okay.
I'm guessing it was probably early 2009 because I think I bought their first EP at
Hmm.
the show, and then I was keeping up with them and waiting for their full length to come out.
Okay.
I remember pre-ordering it on Amazon and
Okay.
them shipping me the wrong thing when it came out. I got. Do you remember those like sampler CDs they would do for albums back then that had like 2 or 3 songs from the album on it that they would use as like promo things?
I
They
mean, I'm
sent me
sure I
that
saw them. Yeah.
instead of the full album. So, and in 2009, exchanging things on Amazon was a pain. It
Yeah.
I was very aggravated at the experience of trying to get this CD because like they're not a huge band. It was probably saying one in stock or something like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, just please just get me what I ordered. So I did eventually got the album, wore it out. I have, according to my last FM, which I started using in 2005, I have listened to this album more than any other album.
Wow.
Yeah. So once I got it, I cherished it and I wore it out.
That is awesome. Eventually you defeated Amazon and then it became a staple of the
Yeah,
playlist. That's awesome.
exactly.
Well, for me, it was introduced this solely by you. And it's been in the last year, obviously. So this was one of those things that looking through your list, this made it onto my calendar because I eventually went through your kind of top 250. I think it's 250
Yeah.
albums, and this made it onto my calendar just for that.
It seems like years and years since you've been here. Oh, my dear, I'm falling apart and I'm losing heart every day. I'm without you from the very start. I wanted to know more of you.
That's a good segue for me. This album is number 18, if I remember correctly, on your top 250 album list. So, I mean, what is it about this album? Why do you love this album so much?
Quick disclaimer: I am currently
Okay.
reevaluating my list. Well, I'm always reevaluating my list, but it's at the point now where I took my old one that I kind of update over Rate Your Music, not the
Okay.
one that I listed on my website, but I keep tinkering with that list, but over on Rate Your Music because it's easy to move things around. So I've taken that list off where it's public now because I'm so invested in having a brand new,
Sure.
newly ranked list, and then that one I will put on my website too. But yeah, 18th sounds about right.
Okay.
I I think it sounds so good.
Yeah.
Matt Malpass and whoever else engineered on it, it's got I think it's a pretty unique sound. It's clean, but it's also like a little bit gritty in the drums
Hmm.
and even in the vocals. I think they like some parts in the drums. It sounds like they use some kind of manipulation on them at times
Yeah.
and things. I just think it sounds great,
Hmm.
and the songs are catchy, but not to an annoying level where it's
Yeah.
like I've that they don't wear out their welcome. I don't think the lyrics leave a lot to think about, and I've actually found them pretty inspiring
Hmm.
over the years. I think it's just quality on pretty much every level,
Yeah.
and there are favorite albums that I will only listen to under like no distractions, headphones on, everything else put away. And then there are favorite albums that I will just play to death and wear out. This is in that will play to death and
Hmm.
wear out category, and just don't get tired of it.
Yeah. I think catchy is a really, really good way to describe it. And I would even describe it as like easy to listen to. Like you put it on and like right away you're like, okay, there's nothing abrasive about this. And I'm not a huge abrasive music guy. And so like it's really, really easy to listen to. And
Mhm.
I had it on during work a couple times. I had it on while I was cooking a couple times because I was much less familiar with this. So I was trying to get kind of catch up, and I'm still not anywhere near as familiar, but like just so easy to listen to. Like just you get through it, and especially in my opinion, side A is just kind of one after the other after the other. It just keeps on building, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is so easy. And I think that's right. It's catchy, but not like overly catchy. It's just but so easy to listen to.
Totally agree.
I think it also has it's got some moodiness to it. Like I see why it gets thrown into the emo phase, like or emo genre. Like it's got some moodiness to it. It's got some ambient, qualities to it. And then it's interesting that you saw them with May, because that's what this reminded me of the most. A little Jimmy Eat World at times, but like that, the bells were going off for me. I was like, oh, this really is a lot like May at times. That's my closest comparison. What do you think about that comparison, or is that way off base?
No, I think that's a really good comparison. The guitars and the drums remind me a lot of like the big Mute Math singles on their first album. And then I think vocally it definitely leans more into the May emo pop kind of thing. So yeah, I think like a combination of a singles oriented Mute Math meets May and things like that. Yeah.
Get out of this world, get out of this place, make a life worth living with love on your face. Get out of this trance, get out of the waves, run away from your reflection. It goes in one direction.
Why would you say that this album is important to you? And if it's not important to you, but I think it is, why do you think it still holds up the way it does? I mean, it's still obviously something you go back to quite often. I know you've touched on some of these things, but yeah, why is this album important or hold up for you?
I think it ties in a lot to what I said earlier about it just being just a excellent, well done in every aspect, but also Autumn, like the lyrics to that are very, very inspirational to me, and Flowers and Fireworks. There's a lot of things that I feel like keep me kind of grounded. I don't know if you want to talk about individual songs later, or if you want.
Yeah,
me
we'll
to
get
kinda
we'll get
go
there
into that.
later,
Okay.
but it's okay if they're important to this answer.
Yeah.
They come up now, that's fine.
Yeah, I would just say just that it sounds good. It's replayability, the lyrics being something that are more than surface level, at least to me personally. I
Yeah.
think those are the things that make it so important to me, and that keep me coming back to it.
Do you think that when this came out, like 2009, they kind of use the phrase emo pop, and I know that may not be a perfect. Was that again 2009 is when I'm like starting to really I'm really into the Hymns albums, and I was that was really my hip hop phase where I was really taking a deeper dive into hip hop, and then I was doing a lot of looking back, like I was finding stuff from the 80s and 70s and stuff, and that was kind of when I was kind of more looking back. Was this a genre that was like dominating at the time, or that was big, or was it still kind of a small spin-off of emo, or was this kind of lumped in with that where emo was still kind of a force in 2009?
I would say, like in the absolute punk community, where you mentioned this was a top 30 album of the year, I was very involved. I guess you could say involved to the point where I checked the website every single day
Okay.
and posted in the forums somewhat regularly, not a whole lot. But within that kind of community, emo pop was still a thing. And particularly like the stuff that was more, I don't know if you obviously Copeland, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that was more in the pretty side of things, I'd say. I don't know if you're familiar with Lydia, but they also did real well in the absolute punk community, and they were label mates with All the Day Holiday. I think there were only like 3 bands on Link Star Records. They were one of them. So Lydia being, I think their Illuminate album was in 2008. It was probably a top 5 absolute punk album that year. So that probably actually contributed a lot to people listening to the things we've grown to love, I would guess. But yeah, there was a strong little community for stuff like that in the late 2000s still.
And you mentioned Copeland now twice, and that's the other one that I think, like, I kind of gauge like what I need to go back and listen to because I've missed stuff is by like the reactions I get from people on Twitter. Like I'll post something that I came from your list or Josh's list, and people are like going nuts, and I'm like, oh, clearly I need to take a closer look here. And you know, some of it I do, and some of them I'm like, oh yeah, that's just not for me, and some of it's like, I think this really could be for me. And Copeland's another one, and yeah, I can see a similarity or at least a connection of sorts
Yeah.
between these two.
Right.
Oh, just then when I thought I was making sense. Oh, just then you showed me it's more than bread to them. Comfort is sad and I'll give you credit for this when all of them.
We started getting into it a little bit, but you know, you've already mentioned a couple, Autumn and Flowers and Fireworks, but what are some of your favorite tracks? What are the tracks that go to? And I know this, for some of these albums, it's really hard just to not say, well, it's all of them. I totally get that. But you know, what are some of the highlights for you?
Like I said, I'm working on this updated top albums list, and I have been rating every song
Oh my gosh.
from 0.00 to 10.0.
Oh, you're a better
So-
man than me.
6 of the 12 songs are at least a 9.5 on my
Okay.
scale. So there are 6 songs that I would consider 5-star songs.
Okay.
Autumn is one of those. The lyrics about letting the pages turn on their own and let the author of your life do some writing keeps me from like trying. When I think about that, it keeps me from like trying to force good things. Just let, not like just don't put any effort towards things, but don't like try to force your way into things that you think are good because maybe they're not. Maybe that's why those things are being held for you, from you. So to do a little more leaning on the author of your life to write those pages. But yeah, it's just a good sounding song, and it's catchy, and I like the lyrics, and so that's one of my favorites. 2000 Winters is another one of my favorites. I think the guitars and things are beautiful in it. It's just kind of starts off as a slower song. Greener is another one of my favorites. Another one of the kind of, I tend to prefer, I think, the slower songs as opposed to the more bouncy songs. But Atmosphere, which was also on that first EP that they put out. It's the only song that was on that first EP that they also put on this album. Okay. I'm not quite sure why, because even though it's a 5-star song, it's probably like my 3rd favorite song on the EP. So I would have liked to see a couple more of those kind of redone like this one was.
Yeah.
Flowers and Fireworks is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Oh.
Top 50 at least.
Okay.
Probably top 25. Just, it's another one where the lyrics mean a lot to me. Talking about how God takes your fears and doubts and makes you a place to abide in. Is like, as I had a lot of struggles like with my faith in the for most of my life really, but in 2009 the song was really hitting home for me. Just, I guess a lot of people wouldn't say it was a deconstruction, but for me it was kind of like a deconstruction, I think, from the fundamental Baptist way that I was brought up, and I just had a lot of questions, and the song, the lyrics kind of helped me embrace those things and not be as scared of them, but allowing God to take those things and make them a place where I can still rest in Him amidst whatever questions and things I have.
Yeah.
I think the song was a good soundtrack to that, and I just think it's a beautiful song. So yeah, that's my favorite track list of many great ones. Also quite like Invisible, which is, I guess, the acoustic closer type song that was pretty trendy probably around this time. But I think it's one of the more well done ones of that era.
So those are the six. Those are the kind of the six that make the 9.5. That's pretty solid. How many other albums get six 9.5 songs on them? Can't be that many.
So let me pull up my thing here. Sorry, I enjoy talking about this subject way too much. So I have 69 albums that average at least like a 9.0 or better.
Okay.
So 9.5 would probably put that in the top half of that. So there's about 69 albums that I would put in the 4.5 to 5-star category
Sure.
out of the 4,659 albums that I've rated. So I think I told Josh Balog he's not going to be happy with this updated list because he used to give me a hard time about how strict I am with my ratings.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of decided I was going to do it his way for a little bit. So that was kind of how I was over the last year or two. But as I've been redoing this, I'm back to my stricter ways. So I've got 14 albums that are 5 stars, and whatever 69 minus 14 is, those are the 4.5 stars.
Okay.
And the other 4,000 something albums are somewhere between 4-star and 1-star.
I'm really excited to see this again at some point. Like I'm
glad somebody is.
I'm with you. I like the stricter evaluation. I think especially if you can also just, because I think you can articulate why like being a 3.5 star album is still great. Like I still love this even though it's 3.5, because I think some people like get really, really upset about that. And generally on this show, like I'm a pretty I try and do pretty positive stuff. I know other shows kind of really like, there's a show I listened to recently because somebody had recommended it and it was just crapping on the artist. I was like, I don't want to do that. I just have zero desire to do that. But like, I think you could take a 3.5 star album and find a way to also say, hey, here's the things that are good about this. Like here is the highlights from it. And just because it's not a perfect album doesn't mean you hate it by any means.
Right. I've started. I listen to church jams now pretty often. Me and Kylan have become pretty good friends. So I kind of think of things in the flop or bop category sometimes now.
Sure.
And I told Kylan, I said, if I give something a 3.5 or up, that means it's a bop. So even if it's a 3.5, that's not bad in my scale. That's a good album.
Yeah.
But using more of the 3.5s and 4 stars allows the 4.5s and 5s to shine brighter, I think.
Right.
As I think they should, being the, very favorites of mine. Not that anybody should really care what my opinion on what my favorite music is, but I enjoy obsessing about it, and it keeps me from stressing about things that really do matter. So
see, and I think I could even like my number one album all time, my favorite album is our newest album ever by Five Iron Frenzy. Everybody knows. Look, I found a way to work them into one more show. I find a way to work them into every show. It's amazing. And I would say that like I remember Josh was doing his like, is this a 5-star album polls that he was putting out on Twitter? And I voted no on that. I can tell you the problems with it. Like I totally can. Like there's at least 1 or 2 songs I'd be willing to cut. I'm just totally willing to, even though one of them is Where Is Micah? I have a daughter named Micah, for goodness sakes. And I would cut that song. And the one at the end, I can't even believe it. The one talking about the test tube and could put my God inside a box. Like that album is that song's perfect for an EP, and you cut that down, it's 11 songs, it's a perfect album. You can take Shut Up out too, and it's 10 songs and even more perfect. I'm a big fan of 10 songs, half hour. That's a perfect album.
I have thoughts on that too.
And that's maybe the punk rock in me coming through, but like I love that idea. But it's still my favorite album, and I wouldn't rate it a 5-star because of those things. But the good is so beyond 10 for me. I mean, I will say it, Every New Day is not a 10. It's 100 out of 10 for me. There's something is stirred in my soul for that song every single time. And so like, I don't know, I'm even willing to be like, nope, I can rate other albums higher than that on like a rating. But for me personally, there it's just there's such an emotional connection to that album that'll just never be broken. And I'm willing to. I also live with a bit of my emotions on my sleeve. I make sense to no one in my family. They're all confused by the way I live my life. So yeah.
So, okay, I gotta tell you the way that I've been getting around this because nobody cares. So, if
I
have the
care. This is great.
if I have the opportunity to talk about it with someone, I'm going to.
Yes.
So, my thing is there are several albums that have more than 10 songs where 10 of them would make a pretty perfect album. So, I will take my average score of the top 10 and come up with that score and then put it in the tier below that.
Okay.
That way it's still, I think, being celebrated as if it were a nearly perfect album, even though 5 of the tracks may be lackluster. If there's 10 great ones, it's still, even if it's not in that 5-star tier, it may still get it to that 4.5-star tier. So there are technically 3 or 4 albums in my 4.5 range that if I went by the true score, they would probably be in 4-star albums.
Okay. I see. I like it. I think the other thing about it is like, it's yours. Do what you want with it. Like,
yeah.
Like I've had a couple people come after me with, how can you rate this album above that? And I'm like, cause it's my favorite. Or how can you call, I got this recently, like, how can you call the W's ska? And I'm like, cause who cares? Because I want the conversation to be fun. So I'm calling them ska because why not? I know they're more swing than ska, but who gives a crap? It's 20 years ago. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
It's my list. It's my show. It's my thing.
Exactly.
Let's all settle down. This is my take on it. I love it. I think you should do whatever you want with your top list. You've gone through 4,000 albums. That alone, my friend, I am so impressed. That's amazing. I don't have the capacity for such things.
Thanks. So. It's probably a bit like John Piper would probably be disappointed with how I've been living my life, but I don't know.
We're gonna redo the Seashells quote. Do you see what this guy's doing on Rate Your Music? This album obviously ranks high. So after the fact, and this gets I'll say it. I think this could be a little bit of a hard sell. Like, you see those bands that come out with one album and you're like, you should go listen to this. And people are like, why? There's no legacy there. There's no anything of that. But if you were going to sell somebody on this, like 15 years later, here's an album you missed. I totally did. And I had to take the deep dive to do this show. But like, why would you tell somebody like, hey, you need to go back and check this album out. It's worth diving back into 15 years later.
I feel like I keep saying the same thing about it.
It's the questions. It's the format. I'm the problem.
No, it's not that. It's probably my limited vocabulary. I just think they're good songs with good messages and good instrumentation and good production, good mixing. I think on every level, you really, even if you don't do great single songs like I do, I think on every other level, it's at least a quality stuff in every aspect. And genre wise, it's not going to be everybody's thing. Not everybody is into kind of the, kind of like, I wouldn't call his vocals whiny, but they are a little, high in the register, I think. And that's not everybody's cup of tea for sure. And I mean, it's not like they're playing extremely complicated parts and things, but everything that they do well. It sounds great. If you do like it, you're going to get so much replay value out of it. And in this day and age, in the streaming age, I think that's pretty huge. You can always just jump to the next thing and the next thing. And I think this is just an album that if you do like it, you'll keep wanting to go back to it, which is not something that I think I experience as much in the streaming era.
a good measure for this. Like again, this was my introduction to it, and I was like, hey, in fact, it was when I was talking to AJ about he was on my June 15th show, and I was talking to AJ, and he was like, oh, you should talk to Eric about this album, and I was like, oh, because I was showing him other things that were coming up. Like I was kind of going through the year, because me and him, hopefully he's still interested in doing it, is we're going to do London Calling at the end of the year, because that's 45 years. It's my second favorite album of all time. Super excited to talk to him. He's got the book out, Jesus and Joe Strummer. Like, it'd be perfect. I hope he's still willing to do it with me. Yeah. And so then he saw this one. He was like, you should talk to Eric about this. And I was like, all right, because I was probably going to skip it. Like I'm trying to have a little variety. I do, but this is why I like doing this, is that I want to try and occasionally get outside my comfort zone and like pull something in that is not necessarily something that was there that I was super into or I know a ton about. And this was one of these ones where like I'm a good measure for this, because I really enjoyed listening to this, and like it didn't feel like a chore to go back and put it on. Like, 'cause I'm sure you've had that experience where you're like, oh, I need to listen to this again. Yeah, I am good. And it was a really enjoyable thing to re-listen and kind of discover. And yeah, it's not my normal wheelhouse in a lot of ways, but this felt like this, and like May's the Everglow really felt like I could take those two albums and be like, okay, I can see the appeal to this type of genre. And yes, it may not be for everybody, but like you can kind of like, when something kind of, in my opinion, this good is there, it kind of opens you up to be like, all right, I need to be a little more receptive to other things in this genre. So I feel like this can be a really, really good gateway into those things. If you're like, yeah, I want to get into this a little more, I want to take a deeper dive, this feels like such an easy place to start, because it's just very, very accessible and very, very easy to kind of to get into that. So that's I think I'm a good measure for this, because I totally was like, yeah, this is great. So
I'm so excited to hear that. It's one of those albums I've always felt. I was in a pretty active member of an online forum at the time, and I pretty much pushed this album on everybody that I could at the time, because it's one of those, nobody really knows it hardly. Yeah. But when people listen to it, they would tend to like it. You may not get a whole lot of listeners to this episode, because I don't know that the album has that many fans. But if anybody's listening, please give it a try. You might love it. You can tell myself and Caleb and AJ Simmons that you enjoy it, and you can join our little club of people who enjoy this album now.
Well, it gets one more person out there, and you could hit up the members on Facebook and be like, at the very least, maybe it ends up being something that brings a smile to their face. That's alone. Sure. That 15 years later, still talking about it, still introducing new people to it. So
I'm definitely going to share the episode with them.
Yeah, and it can't get any less listens than my solo episode about Catbite, the tiny little Philadelphia ska band that I love so passionately, but totally understand why they're not going to pick it up. When I was like trying to figure out, can I do these shorter episodes where it's not just me talking? Let's try one with just me talking. I can do it. Nobody listened to that episode. That's fair. They even retweeted it. Still, it has like 15 listens. It's like nobody. So,
did you join Kylan's club that he's doing there to try and matchmake people on?
I did.
On
I
albums?
Totally.
Yeah.
The one I threw out there we'll see who gets it. It's my sixth favorite album of all time. I mean, so it's okay. I chose one that I love, and it's potentially really not accessible for some people, because I'll say it because it'll probably be out there by now, but it's a Jeff Rosenstock album, and that I love passionately. I think it's one of the best albums of the last 20 years. And he swears a ton. Some of the stuff he talks about is it's an anti-capitalism album. That's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I totally get that, but there's something about that album that is special to me. So I was like, I'll throw this into the mix, and we'll see if I lose followers because of it.
So much deeper, so the trees can grow stronger. You take the roots so much deeper. You take my feelings out and make me
that is our breakdown of, I'm going to mess it up one more time. The Things We Have Grown to Love by All the Day Holiday, again, released August 4th, 2009. So celebrating a 15-year anniversary. I think I have that date right. I should probably start doing that in all of these, that I think that's the date. You never know. Some of these, you're doing your best. So Eric, I know you've got a lot of stuff going on. Where can people find you online? I think everybody, it's not like my show is going to introduce people to you. If they know me, they know you for sure. But, where can you find online? And then I know you've got a show that you do as well. Kind of tell us a little bit about that, or maybe some things even coming up for August and September.
You can find me on X, or Twitter, as some of us like to call it. You can find me there at In Everglow, or I Never Glow. Some people...
I still say I Never Glow every time I have to write it out.
I like that. I'm like, I actually think I might like that more than more than a Never Glow. So that's fine. But yeah, you can find me on X there. Really enjoying doing the YouTube channel. Thanks, Caleb, for encouraging me to do a podcast type thing. That really did help kind of push me to do something that I already wanted to do anyways. I just needed some encouragement from some people. I'm really enjoying doing that at In Everglow on YouTube. We were doing Decent Christian Music Talk. We are going to change the name to the In Everglow Show because I just love too much music, and like I just, nobody has told me that they're disappointed in how little I talk about Christian music on a channel called Decent Christian Music Talk, but
yeah,
it doesn't feel true to the name. So we're going to change it to the In Everglow Show. Kylan Savage and AJ Simmons are going to be pretty much like my regular guests / co-hosts. Most episodes they'll be on there.
Okay.
We've got one coming out that we recorded last week with one of my biggest inspirations as a music listener and critic. His name's David Martin. He is going to be he's a guest on there, and we do our favorite albums of 2013. Break that down. We are going to try to do some reaction videos. Okay. Coming up soon. So I'm really enjoying working on that. I'd love it if you'd subscribe and keep, that keeps me kind of motivated and encouraged to do it. So
yeah. You started doing the shorts. I saw that one. That was good.
Yeah, did my first short. Yeah, just kind of learning as I go. Kylan does all the hard stuff, and without his help, I wouldn't be able to do the YouTube thing. So thankful for his help and other people who've encouraged me and are helping me, and really enjoying it.
As somebody who's changed the name of his show because they realized he didn't nail it quite right, and still I question if I've chosen a good name. I think that's part of the fun of this, is that like your livelihood doesn't depend on this. So go out there and have fun. And if you're like, oh yeah, this isn't the right way to approach this, let's change it up. Like, let's do it slightly different. Like, I've said this to a couple people, like I changed the format of this show 100% for sustainability. Like that became like, I want to keep on doing this. And like, I'm even going to change up how I'm doing Twitter posts. Cause like, I want to keep on doing it, but like it takes a lot of time, to the point my wife has started to ask like, is this too much time? And I'm like, yes, it probably is. I need to find some better approaches. Hang with me if you can. And she's like, she's willing to do it. So but yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it, is sustainability, and are you having fun? And that's what matters. So
yeah, I think we started out having a lot of, different guests on there and things. And there's still people I want to have on, for one, and some other people, but I'm probably going to, once all those people are on there, aside from, an occasional maybe artist or something, I think it's mostly going to be me and AJ and Kylan. Yeah. Because our schedules kind of align up. I think we've got good chemistry. And I think people are coming to kind of enjoy that camaraderie between us. So, I think that's the plan for the future there.
Yeah. I think that makes sense too. And then maybe even, it's not like you have to do that forever. Like 6 months later, you might be like, hey, schedules change or something's changed. Now we're going to start doing a little bit of this, like that is. And you're right. Like doing the guests, that's become the majority of my work now, is like, actually like it's the editing as well. But like trying to find the right person, and like also trying to be like a little mindful of like, you can't just invite anybody on the show. Like it has to be somebody with like a good chemistry. And like the June 15th show took so much time because I had 10 guests and like one guy bailed on me. He just never showed up. And
Oh man.
so then I had to like switch
hate
it
that.
around, and like there were some takes on there that I was like, this isn't what I would say about this, but whatever, you know? And so like, I think
Right.
it makes it interesting. So yeah.
You do a great job. I'm jealous of your podcasting voice. If I could take it from you, I would. You can have this accent if you want it.
Well, I am Minnesotan, and I have heard that when they cast like the big newscasters for like nationwide stuff, they want them to have the Minnesota accent without the you betchas. Like that's kind of the goal. Like Paul Majors is a guy from Minneapolis who went out to the biggest station in LA, and they chose him because he was Minnesotan, and that's why they wanted him out there. And he was out there for like 40 years or some crazy number.
well,
So yeah.
that does make sense.
Yeah, the Minnesota accent is, if you can get rid of the you betches and whatnots, the Fargo stuff, it's supposedly what you want. But I hate my voice. But
Well, you do a
that's
great
like
job.
everybody.
You do a great job on Twitter. I have notifications on for your tweets. You remind me of many albums every day that I may have forgotten. Everyone should follow Caleb the Spy on Twitter and enjoy the reminders about albums that you probably forgot.
Thanks. I am glad I've been able to contribute. Because I just feel happy that I found a spot where I can contribute something that people seem to enjoy. So
You really do.
So,
And
yeah.
I get so excited when I see that MIA or somebody retweeted you. It
Yeah.
makes me so excited to see
I think that's still my biggest one, because
that.
that was a big one. So
Yeah,
so,
it was.
So yeah, I can't say thanks enough. I think I would have left Twitter if it hadn't been for that CCM tournament back in March of 2023. I was
That's so
feeling a little done with it, and I was feeling just kind of like, and this is kind of like, like finding that community has been such a big deal to me, because it really has been this amazing community to kind of get involved with. And there's so many people that I've been able to engage with now that it's like, oh, you know, my wife teases me all the time. She's like, oh, is that another Twitter friend? I'm like, yes, it is. It is a person I look forward to hearing stuff from. And it's
Right.
like, it's made it pretty special. And even the podcast wouldn't have happened without that. I mean, you know, so I'm super thankful to have found you and the community you started, the king of CCM Twitter.
Oh, well, I really, really appreciate that.
So,
I can't imagine Twitter without you being there at this point.
oh,
Your content is important and enjoyable.
I'm glad people like it. I'm glad it's found a place. So awesome. Well, Eric, thanks for taking the time to talk with me. I know a busy life, so I really appreciate it. And yeah, I can't say thanks enough for joining my show. And I'm glad we get to talk about something and we push this to more people, because I agree, this is an album that people need to check out more. So
Awesome. I'm so glad that you're a fan.
I'm in. Look at me.
Awesome.
I'm an emo kid now.
There you go.
45-year-old emo kid. No,
There
it's
you
not
go.
gonna happen. Awesome. All right. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks.
The river flows beneath the bridge we stand. Nothing can separate the hold on our hands. The river flows beneath the bridge we stand. Nothing can separate the hold on our hands. The river flows beneath the bridge we stand. Nothing can separate the hold on our hands. The river flows beneath the bridge we stand. Nothing can separate the hold on our hands. Oh, on our hands. Oh.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Album Anniversary Podcast. I want to say thanks again to Eric for joining me to talk about the things we've grown to love by All the Day Holiday. It was great to have him on the show. It was great to talk about this album. It was great to talk about CD Revival. It was great to talk about ranking albums. Just a great conversation with Eric. I can't say thanks enough for joining me. Let us know what you thought. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? What are your favorites from this album? You can find me on Twitter at Caleb the Spy with no spaces. I'm also on Instagram at Caleb the Spy with underscores in between the words. And you can email me at calebthespypodcasts@gmail.com. No spaces or underscores in that. And that ends with an S. Podcasts, plural. If there are albums that should be on my calendar because they are worth celebrating, let me know. I'll do my best to get them on. If you want to join me on the show, the best way to do that is to follow me on Twitter. I will, if I'm looking for someone to guest on the podcast, I'll throw out an album and say, hey, who wants to talk to me about this? If we can make it work, I'd love to have you. If you're so inclined, leave a rating or review. I've heard it's the most effective way to spread the word about podcasts. And most of all, I just want to say thanks if you engage with me at all on social media. I put a lot of time and energy into setting up those daily posts, so seeing people get excited to revisit or discover older albums is always a thrill. If you enjoy this show, you might also enjoy the other show I do with my friend Scott. It's called I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. And it's not just a podcast where we reminisce about our youth, but we are trying to go and interview fellow 90s youth group kids and some kids from the 2000s and kind of find out where they're at now and how that youth group experience has impacted their lives, whether they're at the church they were raised at or they've left the faith entirely. We just want to hear their stories. We're not trying to change anybody's mind or convert anybody. We just talk to them about their experience and how, no matter where they're at now, that youth group experience had an impact on their lives. The music at the beginning and the end of the show is the instrumental version of the song Sing It Out at Street Level by Peg and the Rejected. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
I have.
I threw you off with a question that I wouldn't prep you for. So